some European countries, the United States, France, and others, want now to follow a new way of toppling governments by force, something which contradicts with the international law, which contradicts with the agreements that they were leading to draft a few years ago. Now we are living in a new world, particularly after the end of the Cold War, but I see not only a new Cold War is emanating. In fact, we have a very hot war that was represented in recent developments in the region and outside the region. And I think if, God forbid, they succeed in Syria, the entire world will suffer the consequences of such a thing.
What will happen?
What will happen is chaos everywhere in the world, because democratically elected governments are toppled because X country doesn't like the leader of that country or the policies of that country.
Clearly the key ally, therefore, for Syria is Russia. Do you have absolute confidence that Russian support for Syria will never diminish?
Categorically, yes.
Never.
And you will ask me another question, why? I believe that Russia has suffered the consequences of the Cold War. There is a new reality. And I think Russia, China, others would like to see a more peaceful world, a world without hegemony, a world without misinformation. And I think Russia is standing with Syria, not because, there are interests as some may claim. No, I think Russia is interested in the respect of the Charter of the United Nations, which prohibits such policies being followed by France, the UK, the United States.
Toppling governments by force.
Absolutely. And other governments in the region. Secondly, because they respect the international law. And thirdly, because they don't encourage invading other countries. These are principles on which Russian policies have been declared. And I don't believe Russia will change these principles.
And if Russia loses her ties with Syria, Russian influence in the Middle East is finished.
I will not look at the problem, this way, because Russia has relations with other countries and other governments. But Russia has stood against the invasion by NATO of Libya. And this was a very clear manifestation of the way Russia is developing its international relationships.
The West, America, on the one hand supporting the political leaders of the rebellion, on the other hand designating some of their key fighters as terrorists. What does Damascus make of that?
Frankly speaking, it does not play either side. We believe that the meeting in Morocco was a farce. It was a meeting that was meaningless. But it came at a time when the armed groups, the terrorist groups, were losing grounds. So to give them a psychological kind of support. These are killers. They are not revolutionaries.
So you agree with calling them terrorists? Then?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
America got that right?
I think no. You know why? Of course, what they did was, as they say usually, was too late, too small. And if Al-Qaeda is going to be designated as a terrorist organization, then what about others who are shooting the same way? Are we going to distinguish between the bullet of Al-Qaeda because they call themselves like this and others who use the same bullet to kill as non-terrorists? I think this is double standard, and this will not be acceptable in international relations. All those who kill innocent civilians are killers and terrorists, and they should be accountable as such.
That includes your government?
No, we are not killing citizens. We are not killing innocent people.
You are?
Absolutely.
You are killing civilians?
No, absolutely not.
You deny the government is killing any civilian? You're shelling civilian areas?
No, these are not civilian areas. These are empty places from which all the civilians were pushed away by the terrorist organizations. So we are targeting terrorist groups, not civilian places. And sometimes, I mean, we are shelling, places where never, civilians are being there. So this is what's happening far away from the propaganda given by certain media outside Syria.
The perception is, let's be clear, that Aleppo may well be falling, that Homs is divided, the international airport here in Damascus is shut, there's fighting to the east, to the west, and to the north. It is the beginning of the end, isn't it?
I think this contradicts with what's happening in reality. I think these are their dreams, and this is what they want. So I tell Mr. Haig and Mr. Cameron not to interfere in Syrian affairs, because if they support nowadays terrorist organizations, armed groups, then the whole world would suffer in the future the consequences of such a kind of immoral support.
Sure, but do you deny that picture I've just painted? I mean, for
absolutely,
instance,
absolutely.
But Minister,
this is a big lie.
The airport is closed.
They have been lying. Yes, that's
not a lie.
Correct.
That's
because this is a political game, and because if you go to Homs, Aleppo, and so on, you may see something which is really not, as we want it. But Aleppo is still in the hands of the government. Homs is still in the hands of government, with the exception of 2 small quarters. And all other centers in Syria are in the hands of the government. And I tell you, without the Turkish support and the support given by Turkey, by the UK, by France to these terrorist groups, the Syrian army would be in control of all parts of Syria. And it will take them, not only a few hours, but a few days.
Good. Well, I hope indeed to speak to your president very much. But let me leave you finally with a recent development from the UK. I remember some weeks back, our own Prime Minister David Cameron suddenly said, well, you know, if President Assad and his family wants to leave Syria, we will make sure they have safe passage to leave. I can see you smiling already.
This is funny.
How was it received in Damascus?
It was received not only with smiles, but with laugh. Because
with laughing?
Yes, because the President Assad is not of this category of people who live at the expense of the suffering of his own people. So he declared more than once, and he informed all those journalists who met with him that he will live and die here because he is made in Syria. All of us are made in Syria and will never leave Syria when it is in trouble.